We are live. Have you got an intro, Ross? You got something funny to say?
Yeah.
Cool.
This is the question when we're live. Are you
Yes.
prepared in any way?
Right.
Intro. I'm Ross. Welcome to the podcast.
We're just gonna do time is because we'll use Audacity as well, just as a backup.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to record. I'm recording with that. Yep, that's all fine. Yep,
Been
yep,
recording
yep.
for 4 minutes and 30 seconds already. So what
Whatever.
are we going at?
That's Sam's
44,
problem,
30.
Ross. Don't worry about it.
44, 30?
30, 10,
Yeah.
10.
30, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Got that.
Cut that. Maze balls. Right.
The anticipation is killing me.
I know. I need to. Sam usually does this, so I'm just when I was waiting for you to come on, I was like,
Do I need
"What
to
the
have
fuck
my
do I
IMDb
do?
up?
All
Do
of
I need
this?"
Do I need to have an intro for you?
You will. I almost thought just before we start, I really considered like putting a load of mascara around my eyes. Just to make you laugh, Ross. But then I didn't. But I really did seriously consider it. But I was like, how would that come off? Can I like paint around my eyes? I don't understand.
Oh man, absolutely brilliant.
The ridiculousness of putting a costume on to do a podcast is.
Yeah, but we go live on video, so yeah, it's.
It would all be for you, Ross. I don't care about YouTube. It would all be for you specifically.
And I'm genuinely flattered. I wish you did it now.
Hey. Well, here's what it is, isn't it?
Do it next week for Toy Story. Put a condom on your head as Buzz Lightyear.
What I want to do, Ross, for this intro, and this is purely podcast thing. I want us to be really low and like sigh just for the intro, and then we can perk up. But like you follow me, you'll see what I'm doing. I don't want you to come in like, "Hi, I'm Ross. Would you like to buy my pyramid scheme?" Not your usual salesman bit, all right?
Hey, ready for the podcast?
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Hello. Welcome to this week's episode of the Imaginary Movie Podcast. A podcast where we watch a fun superhero movie and then we talk about it. My name's David, and our movies can destroy us, even after the physical wounds have healed. If we survive them, they can transform us. They can give us the power to endure and the strength to never see another Batman movie in our lives.
And I'm Ross. Riddle me this. What's the point?
Perfect. Enough of that fucking dreary shit. We'll get into more dreary shit in a second. This week, we
took a lot of my power there not to crack.
I know. The Batman from this year, 2022.
Wow.
Oh my god. Like we're
so many emotions.
Ross. We're two white guys on the internet.
We're a white guy down this week.
How are we are one white guy down? But because you're from Ireland, Ross, it actually increases our diversity not having Sam or me, like percentage wise. Somehow. But like, how is a Batman movie not for us? Like, how is this movie not like I wonder what the nerds want. Like, and then that. Why? How?
There are so many facets to this movie. It's like, what was the fucking thought process behind this? And then because at the same time, there's so many things like, oh, that's brilliant. That is brilliant. Especially for someone who reads the comics. Seeing a lot of this, I'm like, yeah, quality, brilliant, true to form. And then other stuff, I'm like, are you guys like reading the fucking script? Like, or do you just pick it up on a random day?
It's almost a uniquely frustrating movie, isn't it?
It absolutely is. I would go one further. It's not almost. It is. It's frustrating because there's so many good qualities about it. And you're like, how the fuck did you fuck this up? How did you steer so wrong? I mean, I want to save it for the crux of the problem, but they tried to do too much in this first movie, this first reboot. I think you said the same as well on WhatsApp. And I
This
can
this 15th Batman reboot we've had in the last fucking 10 years. It seems like
Batman.
like we can get into all that in a minute. I'm going to quickly
Hmm.
do a plot summary, and
Okay,
then when we can maybe talk about
you're doing
Batman
the plot
at
summary, or I'm doing the
large.
plot summary.
I'll do the plot summary for
You
a
do the plot
change.
summary. Okay, you go for it.
It's all about me, Ross. I'm the most important person.
I've noticed.
Um, we've known each other quite some
That is
time. Not a
that
lot's
is not
changed.
lost on me. Trust me.
So, the Batman. We'll get into the name in a minute. When a sadistic serial killer begins murdering key political figures in Gotham, Batman is forced to investigate the city's hidden corruption and question his family's involvement.
Great.
Which, yep,
Great.
like that's the plot to every Batman movie.
Mm.
Like first off, we'll get into the plot. I think this is going to be like a proper like pedanty,
We're gonna be all
like
over the place with this.
minute. However, let's talk about the Batman franchise for a moment because like we are huge Batman fans. I'm speaking for you, Ross,
Big
but
Bat
I'm a
fans.
huge Batman fan.
Big Bat fan.
Big Bat fan. But love bats. And like, you know, we had the gift in the 90s of like two solid, weird, cartoony Tim Burton movies with the two Schumacher movies, which were like a fever dream, but like
I
not
would.
without them. Not go on.
I was going to say, I would say the biggest gift out of all those, like from Batman, is the animated series. That
Oh
for
yeah,
me
yeah.
is full on the epitome of Batman, and
It's peak Batman.
it is peak Batman, and it's one of those '90s cartoons where they're able to portray violence without actually showing it. Like if you watch any clips now on YouTube, they'll see like a fist fight, for example, and just as the fist connects, it's just like a flash of white on the screen, or they
It's
get around
all
like
done by sound, isn't it? Like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
that.
And they get around gun violence by having them like shoot weird, maybe like laser guns that look specifically close to a Tommy gun, but it's not a Tommy gun, it's a laser gun. And that's acceptable because that's how ratings boards work.
Yeah, it's silly, isn't it?
It's
But like
incredible.
we had a really good 90s cartoon. And
Voiced by
there's been a
Kevin
lot of
Conroy, rest in peace.
died recently. And we've had a
Mhm.
lot of like other animated series since, and we can maybe jump into them in a second. But just on the movies, obviously we had the huge Christopher Nolan trilogy,
Yep.
which merits its own fucking 8-part podcast on each of those films.
I mean, to be fair, for the time, fantastic trilogy. Well, maybe not the last one, but the first two, absolutely
I
brilliant
think
movies.
that like those movies are definitely in that vein of like that's what cemented the superhero kind of like inundation
Appeal.
we've got now. Like
Yep.
the fact like that made superhero movies cool in a way that even like the X-Men or
Yeah.
Iron Man kind of like came in the wake of. And we had them, and then obviously we had Batfleck. That's my favorite like name for Batman. Who I actually quite liked Ben Affleck as Batman.
As opposed to Pat Fleck. Robert Pattinson.
Yeah,
Nailed it.
Our Pats, Bat Pats.
Patsy.
But I liked Ben Affleck, but the studio
Same.
did him dirty. Basically, seems to be
Mhm.
the like with basically. How can DC not make a good movie? Like literally, have you seen the Birds of Prey, the Harley Quinn movie?
No, and I haven't watched that because I watched Suicide Squad. I was like, this is garbage, and then that came out, and I'm like, no, I choose life. I
It's
choose
actually pretty
life.
good. It's actually pretty good.
If we're
Like
talking
in a
about
shocking
DC stuff,
term, and also the new Suicide Squad, which
I've
I
seen
can't
that.
even fucking.
Decent.
That's decent. Like they've got those, and those are like, especially the Harley Quinn movie, is a Batman like property.
Mm.
How can you
Yep.
fuck up
Harley
the
Quinn
parent movie?
Harley Quinn came from the '90s cartoon series. Before
Yeah,
that, there was no Harley Quinn, and then she was cemented into the series. Speaking of Harley Quinn, I've mentioned to you before, like off podcast, but there's a brilliant, like another animated series, but it's for adults, and it's called Harley Quinn. But it features Batman, and it's got some amazing sort of like turns on the character. Like Jim Gordon's like just a depressing buffoon of a drunk, but and it's a bit sad, but it's also funny. but like it's such an entertaining sort of watch. And Batman features in a couple of episodes, but he's by no means like central to the whole thing. But again, it's great having a series like that where you can just watch it and just be in the sort of the Batman universe and see what's going on. Fantastic
Yeah, I
fun.
do. I do want to watch that. It's basically just not. I'd have to pay for it, I think.
Channel 4.
Um,
You have to
Is it
pay
on
for it
Channel
by
4?
watching
Because
ads. Yeah,
you keep saying this, and then I keep looking, and it's never there. Like this
yeah.
is
I've
not the
watched
first
it.
time we've done this. For some reason, Ross, the first time you mentioned it, I was like, "Oh yeah, great, it's on Channel 4," and then it wasn't. It must have gone off, like
Well, season
sometimes
one's
do.
gone now, so that might have been why. Yeah, you'll have
Yeah,
to
but
find it
maybe
elsewhere.
I'll invest in it because it's supposed to be pretty good. What
It's
I'm trying to
awesome.
get at here is like the Batman
This
franchise is
movie
not
that we
like
watched that the point of this episode is on.
it's kind of like the Spider-Man movies where every 5 years a studio thinks, "Well, we'll just reboot it," and it's like, "No, it's fine." So this was
Yeah.
initially supposed to be a Ben Affleck movie
Oh.
because we never got the Ben Affleck Batman movie. Obviously, we had Batman versus Superman, and we had Batman in the Justice League,
Hmm.
and like maybe a cameo in Aquaman or something. I'm not sure. I haven't
Yeah,
seen that movie.
Red Squad.
Yeah, but like we never got the Ben Affleck Batman movie, which he was
No, we
supposed to
didn't.
direct and star in.
Oh,
Um, but obviously, after the horrible box office performance of like all the DC movies, basically,
it's when they tried to do the MCU. Yeah, the DCEU,
yeah,
DCAU, DC,
and
DC. Go
just
on.
the DCU, I think DCU, I believe is the term DC universe.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, that's not important.
That's
But like,
not. It's really not.
I think that generally, like, the idea was that this would be the Ben Affleck, not necessarily an origin movie like this kind of is, but this would be the Ben Affleck Batman movie where we have Ben Affleck in Gotham doing a Batman plot line. Whereas in
Yeah.
like all those in the Batman versus Superman movie, that's kind of a Superman movie, and then Justice League is kind of a Superman movie. Um, just in terms of the fact that we're fighting fucking magical aliens as opposed to like beating gangsters up, is the
Yes.
core difference. But for some reason, DC took the lesson from all of these flops. Like what DC films have done well: Wonder Woman, which is bright, fun, exciting,
Hmm.
under 2 hours, I think. Like they thought that one did well, but what if we do another 3 hour dark, slow, overwrought movie because it hasn't worked the first 5 times we've done it. But I think the sixth time is the charm. Literally, must be the conversation they're having.
See, the thing is, so like, let's get into. Let me list some of the things they did right, and we can delve deeper, as I mentioned them, if you like. So, first of all, um, the first sort of like proper portrayal of a Riddler in a movie since Jim Carrey, and he is, you know, he's not all there, and but he is absolutely a threat. He's missing his green tuxedo, but you can get over that. But a real threat. So the guy who played him and that character, tick, liked that. Cool. And it was a cool origin story, like sort of thing for Riddler. Cool to see. Catwoman, one of the best portrayals of Catwoman in a movie I've ever seen. She's, obviously like attractive, but she's also like, she kicks so much ass. Like, she is knocking guys out. She's brilliant. And the character and everything, fantastic. The bat suit is kind of cool. Now, and I will say some, or not many, maybe one or two of the fight scenes was great, but I wanted more of that. Like that scene where Batman is finally unveiled, and there's a cool thing where there's crimes being committed all over, and the guy, like one of the ones, he's spraying sort of graffiti, and he drops the can, and it rolls towards this like shadowed corner, and he's too afraid to go get it. That's cool. That's awesome. And then you finally see Batman emerge from the shadow. Who are you? And he goes, "I'm vengeance." Okay, I'll live with it. I know you had a problem with that line. I'm not too bad with it. And then he proceeded to knock 7 shades of shit out of the guy. Love that. Like, smacked him in the face about 3 times. And then I don't know if you noticed, but he basically like grabbed his arm and like broke his arm and then
Yeah,
threw him to the ground. And then said, "This is what I wanted. Do you know what I mean? Where Batman, because you see as well when he's doing his monologue. I'll get to the monologue in a second, but you see his monologue, and he's basically he's Batman early in his journey, where he's just angry at everything before he begins to learn compassion, in his work, sort of thing, before he softens a little bit, essentially, and he's vicious. But you don't see that as much anymore. I want him going nuts on criminals, like just beating the ever loving crap out of them. And there's not enough of that. Do you know what I mean? There's these choreographed fight scenes like you have it in Penguin's Club, and it's like, oh, okay.
Ultimately, Ross, the problem is that, because I agree that some of the fight scenes are really cool, they're really well shot. I like him stepping out of the shadows. I like kind of because the Nolan movies try to do this as well. Like, I like that Batman's scary. Like, that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
The Burton movies and
Psychological,
all of the other movies, like, they kind of underplay the fact that these criminals are terrified of Batman because he's going to beat the living shit out of you. You won't see him coming. You won't see him going.
He's unnatural. Yeah,
exactly. He's this supernatural like horror. That's in fact actually like in the comics and in Batman lore. It sounds a silly word to say, but like that's kind of the more important aspect of Batman, rather than
that they
the
fear
criminals
him.
He's beating up.
Because there's the line. There's the line because criminals are a superstitious lot, and that's what he prays. He preys upon their superstitions.
Yeah, and I think the movie touches on that really well, and we get some of that. But for me, the way where it loses it is too much of this movie is Batman standing around watching things happen.
Yeah.
Like,
and we watched the Da Vinci Code last week, so we've had enough of that.
I know, and this movie has so much in common with that movie because it's like it's Batman going from place to place.
Would we have been kinder to it if we hadn't just watched the Da Vinci Code?
But we're kind of unraveling a mystery, and Batman's kind of doing investigative stuff, but it's all very surface level.
It's a really fresh sort of take that as well, because he's the world's greatest detective. It's good to see him like solving crimes. Can I interrupt your point here? Because I had a train of thought here. There's two things I'm going to say. One, this movie is trying to be. It feels like it's trying to be a trilogy in one movie. And what I mean by that is you have the emergence of a new villain, Riddler. And essentially, once you deal with Riddler, then you also have like the city, and that's like, Batman Begins. Then you also have like the stakes where the city's going to be destroyed, and that's like in the Nolan trilogy, the third one where Gotham's going to be blown up. And then you have the sort of second one then as well. There's loads of these minions running about, sort of like doing the Riddler's bidding, and that's like the second one with Joker because he got people that sort of rallied to his cause. Yeah. And the movie, like you rightfully pointed out, Dave, and I can only apologize, the movie is 2 hours 40, and it feels like they're trying to put a trilogy into one movie. And yet you don't like people want to savor this. You don't want to it's not an all-you-can-eat buffet. You want to savor every bite. Make it a 3-course meal. Don't make it a fucking 9-course meal, all-you-can-eat buffet. I want to savor everything. And then the second point, in line with that, what I was going to say is this, I think, would have been much better as like a short series, like a 6-episode series, each an hour long. And well, hear me out, because like at the beginning of the monologue, by the way, I haven't forgot about the monologue, I'm going to come back to that. And he's basically like, Project Gotham year 2, whatever. That's what I would love to see, because there's an animated movie called Batman Year 1, and it shows how like Batman begins, how his relationship develops with Jim Gordon, how he begins to like get criminals to fear him. Because there's this cool scene when he begins to decide to go out to fight crime. He doesn't have a batsuit or anything. He just puts on like makeup and all, and a fake scar, and also obviously he's not recognized. And he gets the shit knocked out of him. And then he's like, that's when he gets the realization, oh, he needs to be something they fear. Anyway, this would have been much cooler to have like six episode, each an hour long, and like it's each sort of like maybe like 24. You know what I mean? It's each like a year in Batman's journey. And because then you have the stakes rising each time. So like, year 1, it's the Riddler, he's taking him on. Year 2, then you have, things, maybe you get Joker into it or whatever. Year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, and that's when Batman's coming to the end of his journey. That's what I think anyway. But the main thing is it feels like this movie is trying to be 3 movies in one, and it just
it definitely does, Ross.
It draws on you.
What I want to do to sort of like focus our discussion a bit.
Go for it.
I love all of this, but let's save the fixes. Let's save
fair.
All of that.
Yeah.
Let's save that for like our final fucking taking a dump on this movie. Let's like fix it.
Yeah.
I do want to talk through this movie and try and maybe like discuss with you. You know how we usually do, like maybe try and understand the plot of this movie and what's happening, and maybe we can discuss as we're going through that, things that we could have dropped, things that we could have done more of, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I will say, actually, Ross, I really don't agree about the 6-episode series thing, but
I thought we were
it's a
saving
really
that to the end.
it's a really simple reason though, and it's
Mm.
literally because like I like movies. Like it's nice to have
Yeah,
a movie.
yeah, yeah,
I like
yeah.
that long
Fair.
form. You can tell a really cool story about, like you said, probably 2/3, maybe half of this movie, like would make a really, really good, concise, interesting story. But there's just too much in it. This
The
movie isn't
reason,
2 hours
yeah,
40 minutes, Ross. This is 2 hours and 56 minutes long.
I apologize,
This is
but
4 minutes short of 3 hours for
the reason
somehow.
the reason I suggest it as a series as opposed to because yeah, we both like our movies, but it's because of the content and it's content you just want to keep absorbing. So spread that out, and because there's so many stories of Batman that you can tell with an overarching. Connected theme or connected storyline that you could easily take your time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they tried doing it with like that series Gotham, and I was like, I never watched it. I didn't hear great things.
It was
Uh,
it started out okay, like it was basically a
mm,
Batman procedural, but it was for various reasons they did it pre-Batman, so it's like
yeah,
Jim Gordon basically like busting, criminals that would go on to become Batman villains. And
yeah.
that's interesting, and bits of it are interesting, but some of the castings, ugh. And like
Mm,
obviously it gets really wacky when they keep getting renewed for season after season after season. They've kind of
yep.
run through all their material and they're having to make shit up.
Plus, you're on time. You're on a ticking clock there because at some point Batman's got to come along. You can't keep having before Batman there was no Batman. Well, Batman's here now, guys. What are we going to do about that? And anyway, but yeah, but that's why I was saying I get we love the movies, but there's been so many movies. Do you know what I mean? We've had the Nolan trilogy. We've had Batfleck. Now we've had Patfleck. We don't need more movies, but we need more of Bat content.
Well, what I want is for this movie to be good. And like the
You
critics
asked too
loved it.
much. You asked
The
too much.
critics I should say the critics loved it. But like I wanted this movie to be a good fun 2 hour Batman movie that starts this thing where we get a Batman movie every year for the next decade.
Mm,
That's what I want. I want these like more not disposable, but a bit like the MCU where everyone gets their movie and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And not all of them are good. Not all of them are consequential. Certainly not all of them are like, like the DC has been trying to do seemingly is build to these big, like boring superhero team movies. I kind of don't want that. I kind of want
mm.
Batman takes on the mob, and that's a movie I'll watch. No
Yeah, yeah.
supernatural villains. No one's threatening to blow up the city. No one's leaking tear gas. It's just Batman taking down corrupt cops for
But
fucking 90 minutes.
I don't want
Amazing.
to I don't want to sound like a broken record, but that's why I'm saying like that's why I think the series thing could work. Year one, year two, whatever, because it can be isolated to okay. In this particular thing, he's taken on the case of Hush or all these like sort of amazing but lesser known criminals that are
Yeah.
an incredible story. And like you say, like corrupt cops and the mob. Like in this movie, you have Maroni and you have Carmine Falcone, real villains from the DC universe, but it's just it could be any movie where it's like insert mob criminal name here. Do you know?
Yeah.
It's
Well, also, like, maybe just invent some stuff. Like, I know we've got all this
mm,
Batman stuff from the comic books, and all the movies kind of lean on that to an extent. I think the Nolan movie is probably the least in terms of like they're inspired by and they kind of take it and make it more
mm.
that super realistic thing, which this movie does do as well, which I liked. Like, there's not a load of super like magical stuff. There's a few bits which we'll touch on, but
The
let's maybe
contact
start
lens.
talking about this movie, Ross, from the start to finish. Let's try and make it as coherent as possible, and let's try and sort of like unravel the plot of this movie because it is long. It's needlessly long, and it's really easy to like get to the 2 hour mark and think, "Holy fucking god, I've got another
Oh,
hour of this movie
we're
left."
not done yet. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because in contrast, I thought that with when I was watching the second in the Nolan trilogy,
The
but
Dark
not in
Knight.
a bad way. I was like, oh, okay, Joker's caught. That's it. End of movie now. That was a bit short. I was like, oh, he got out. Oh, there's still more, and loving it. You know what I mean?
Well,
I
that's an
was there for
example,
it.
Ross, of a really well paced movie that's kind of like well rationed as well. Like the action in that
Mm,
movie is like often enough that you're keeping engaged,
Yeah.
but like sparse enough that it's not like this movie where that car chase that went on for 45 minutes, like, do you know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
where you kind of like, maybe we need a better director, maybe need some, or just a producer or an edit, like someone to say like the car chase is fun, but you can't fucking see any of it because it's so poorly lit, which is fine. It's Batman, but like, so you're just looking away from the TV because you're bored because there's nothing for you to watch and enjoy. And like maybe you just need somebody to come in and say, maybe let's cut 10 minutes out of that, and then
Yeah.
the movie's only
I
2
mean,
hours and 46 minutes long.
if we're cutting content, we could have easily cut that scene where the Penguin is teaching Batman and Jim Gordon Spanish. Like
Yeah.
El Raton, it's La Raton. Ha ha ha. Guys, we don't
Well,
need this. This
what I
is
would have liked, that I kind of liked the mystery stuff, like the
yes,
it would have been
yes.
nice to have Batman doing some of this detective work. Anyway, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So the movie opens and we get some cool Batman fights. The first sort of plot beat is the mayor who's murdered.
I feel like we need to address the monologue at the start. Very grim and sad, and oh, this is very sad. I don't know about you. Have you ever seen The Watchmen?
The movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Reminded me of that. You know, where Rorschach,
Yeah.
Rorschach's journal. The city is a bleeding whore that needs my help, but I don't help whores. The city is a whore. Like
No, that may as well. That might actually be the line.
direct quote from
That's
Batman.
Blake Snyder as well, isn't it? The
Yeah, yeah.
director of Justice League. But like, yeah, I like, and you can kind of forgive that. And let's talk about Robert Pattinson just for a second. I know I said we'll talk about the movie, but like, contentious casting for Batman.
Yes.
Famous pretty boy, vampire, emo,
Sparkly.
basically.
Yep.
Sparkly, sparkle. Like a bit of contentious casting. I think he's all right in this. I think perhaps the hair's a little long. He looks a bit like Tobey Maguire in that third Spider-Man movie.
Oh wow!
Where he's an emo.
Yes.
He looks kind of like that, and I'm like, oh, this is. Ugh.
And we're not disparaging that lifestyle. Just saying we never really pictured Batman as emo. But
No one's emo anymore, Ross. We've moved on from that.
I'm glad you're confident of that. But God, do you know what it felt like? And like I said this to you before, it felt like South Park, that the emo characters, because there's one kid who has the fringe over his eye, and like every so often he'll like flick the head to get the hair out of his eyes. I'm like he's a billionaire playboy. Like I get, we're trying to do a fresh take, but no one's going, God, he's got the world in the palm of his hand, doesn't he? And that's what he wants to portray, and it's just.
Well, it's all just a bit like, oh God, my life's so rubbish. Oh, I'm in love with this girl, but she doesn't know I exist. Like, and do you know what? Actually, there's not loads of that in this movie. There isn't loads and loads of Batman feeling really sorry for himself in a really adolescent way. There's some, and I think that but like they stand out because they're not. Batman isn't like that, and Robert Pattinson isn't like that throughout the movie, even when he's Bruce Wayne. But there's a scene in the rain where he's taking the mask off and he's got the mascaras leaking everywhere.
Yeah,
and it's like. It's a bit much, and the Nirvana song, which we played over the intro, and it's like,
I remember.
yeah, I get it, Batman. I get that you're sad because your parents are dead, and that's very hard.
We were watching this last night, and you're like, oh God, you were like texting again. I don't know how you're putting out so many messages, but you were texting again, and I was like, oh God, it's like, fucking hell, what is this, like whingy emo Batman? And then you also said, God, I'm expecting like the wah emo sound to come in any minute, and I just said, wait for it.
Seconds later, yeah.
Something in the way. Oh,
Yeah,
we've got a little.
It's phenomenal. So obviously Batman's really, really sad, and he's sort of strolling around town feeling
the city is a bleeding whore, crying out for justice, but I don't help whores. I'm Batman,
or something,
or something.
We're gonna keep coming back to that throughout the episode. But like, so you have all that, and then the first movement of the movie is that we have a bit of mystery. We have do we see the Riddler at this point?
No, we're
seeing
him kissing the joint. We see him when he kills.
That's what I'm talking about. That's kind of the first point of the movie where we're doing something.
Yeah,
is it the mayor who dies first?
Or a DA, or not a DA, but
no, the DA.
No, it's a mayoral candidate. He's. I think he's running for re-election. Yeah.
So he kills the mayor and he like duct tapes his face up. It's a weird scene, and he's kind of like he's got this like rubber. The only way I can describe it is gimp mask on.
It was like
Like
a
I can't
duct
think of it.
tape mask.
No, the mask he's wearing.
Yeah.
It's like a
Anyway,
red. It's like a green anorak mask, isn't it? But it's like got this weird bit over his nose and
it's got a
odd
mouth
eye
guard
holes.
sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a custom job. You know that doesn't serve any like
Yeah.
environmental
The only thing
purpose.
that's missing is a little red ball. But yeah. Anyway, go on.
But I didn't mind. I didn't mind the costume for the Riddler. Like I thought it was all
No.
right in that Christopher Nolan vein of like let's make these cartoonish villains, you know, a little bit less cartoonish and a little bit like if you had a psychotic serial killer who you know has this like a serial killer has this perverted idea
They
of
make it their
justice.
identity. Yeah.
Exactly. What would they look like? How would they dress? What would they be able to get hold of? And it's certainly not like a load of lycra with their mum stitched a load of question marks on like Jim
With
Carrey.
the yeah, with glitter on their eye of a question mark. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's probably something like this that's like essentially like an anorak that like a raincoat that has been, you know, basically made into this hood. A
Mm.
bit like the Sandman in that Batman Begins movie. Like again, you know, making it a bit more realistic and a bit more basic and a little bit more like and that's a production design thing, but I really like
Sandman? Do you mean Scarecrow?
Scarecrow. I do mean the Scarecrow. The Sandman is a Spider-Man villain.
You're still on that Tobey Maguire from Spider-Man 3
I
kick.
know it haunts me, that movie. We must do it for the podcast. But like, do you know what I mean? It kind of that brings into that realism of like not realism, but you know, again,
Yeah,
it just seems
it's more grounded.
yeah, and it's so you talked about the violence and how like I kind of like that about Batman and the Batman movies when
Mm.
they're like yeah, Batman isn't like doing the kapow and the Adam West thing. He is like fucking breaking noses, and it's brutal.
It's
And that's kind of
unleashing that pent up anger. His parents been murdered, and he's pretty pissed about it.
and again,
And he
he's
finally has an avenue to let loose.
Batman's got to be scary. Like I said, this is year 2 of Batman, but we see
Mm.
this mayoral candidate get murdered like pretty horrifically with a candlestick. um,
No, it's not a candlestick.
well,
What?
whatever it is, no, or a wrench, or he hits him with something like a big metal thing
Yeah, yes,
in
that
in
carpenter's
the
tool,
flat,
you know, for digging up carpet.
if you
That
say
was a
so.
whole pivotal thing near the end of the movie. Did we lose you then, Dave?
2 hours and 56 minutes, possibly. So he kills this guy, and then he like duct tapes over his face and writes stuff. And
Yeah.
then we get and I could kind of do without this. We get Gordon being like, hey, all you cops, step aside, it's Batman," and I'm like, I didn't love how Batman was a consultant for the
I didn't
GCPD in this
I
movie.
I didn't
He
hate it,
almost has a
although
fucking badge.
I didn't hate it, although it was pretty jarring, especially when you think in contrast to when you compare it to the Nolan trilogy, where basically it's all very done under hush hush, closed door. You know, that maybe it's one or two cops that like, okay, it's Batman, let him in. But like this, you've got the whole fucking precinct down there. Oh, hey, Batman, we're doing a coffee run. You want anything? You know?
Hey, Batman, Jim's retiring on Friday. You're coming to the party.
By the way,
Want to sign the
Batman,
card?
you haven't chipped in for the cake.
Hey, Batman, I don't mean to be this guy, but everyone's chipping in for like
Yeah.
Tony's retirement gift. Do you want to like gold
Yeah.
watch? You know, like.
Tommy's a bleeding whore crying. Oh, okay, Batman. All right, whatever.
But yeah, I could have maybe done with like that Nolan thing, and we're going to keep referring to those Nolan movies because I think they
Yeah,
kind of
of
set the
course.
gold standard for Batman in the real world.
Mm.
Real world.
Grounded.
I would have liked Batman sneaking into the apartment to like gather more evidence that the cops have missed because he is the world's greatest detective.
Yeah.
In this movie, he's okay and he's doing like investigative work, but most of his investigative work is like the most by rote GTA game where it's like go to location B and talk to the bad guy. Oh, he's given us another clue. Go to location C and fucking search the safe. And it's
It did feel like the Batman Arkham series, didn't it? Where it's like
just
press
not well written
L1 to
enough.
enter detective mode.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a blood smear that a
We don't even
trained
have that, Ross.
forensics
He's not
expert
even noticing
missed.
clues the police haven't. He's just solving the riddles.
Just well, he did remember there was that blood spatter, and they were like, yeah, because you have that forensic photographer, and she's like, looks at what Batman's like, and like, oh, and then takes pictures like, how did I miss that?
Yeah, there are touches.
Yeah, and
But
then you have the
again, I
commissioner
could maybe
come
have done
in.
with like Gordon handing him a file and then him going to the crime scene. I think would have been
Yeah.
maybe been a bit more Batman.
Mm.
So we get the scene, and we have the card, and it's like it's personal. It's about Batman. It's about Batman. What happens next, Ross?
Well, he solves the riddle in one, does it?
No.
After then, like I said, the commissioner then comes in, basically like, "Oh, get him the hell out of here," referring to Batman. And there was a good scene. You could have done without it again because everyone knows Batman's parents died, where he basically it was the son who discovered the mayor's body, and you have Batman sort of having this like solemn moment, looking at the
Yeah.
kid. Again, if we're trying to squeeze down that runtime, you could have got rid of that. Yeah, it's poignant, but not necessarily needed. Um,
Everyone knows Batman's backstory, which I'm kind of glad that this
exactly.
isn't like
Yeah,
a
they do
this
get
isn't a
points
Batman
for not
Begins
doing it. Yeah.
because we've had that so many times.
Yeah,
Origin
exactly.
movies on it. Every superhero who's had one,
Yeah.
like the Spider-Man thing, we've seen that a billion times.
But then after that, then you get the crying emo song, Batman riding his bike home, going to the Batcave, which I loved. You said it was like Batman's Batcave gets I'm so sad on my motorbike. Gonna go to my Batcave. I'm Batman.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. So, like you said, the Batcave expands by 1,000 feet every single time they make one of these movies. It's like an aircraft hangar under Wayne Mansion, and we have. It's cool. It's cool enough. The Batcave, like you've got the bank of computers, and he's doing
mm,
stuff, and he's having technology, and he's figuring stuff out. Alfred's fine. It's Andy Serkis who played Gollum in the Lord of the Rings movies. Bizarrely, you
he
don't see
played a
Andy
villain in
Serkis.
the MCU as well. He was like the arms dealer, and he was in like a Black Panther.
Yeah, yeah. You don't
Really
see him
good.
too often as like a an inhuman person character who does a lot of mocap.
Mm,
Anyway, so you have a bit of Batman's home life, and there's a confusing line where Alfred basically says to him that he needs to meet with the board,
yeah,
basically, or you could lose everything. But they kind of don't really chase that up with like.
that's that. It's just
It would be nice if they made it clear that Batman wasn't as rich as if he was only a millionaire, like
mm.
because at the core of this movie, the problem is that like
And
Bruce
again,
Wayne is a billionaire. Like he could go out and fucking solve so many of these problems with money.
yeah, yeah. I thought we were going to save that for later. That was going to be a
I
big
just
one.
wanted to touch on it because
No,
it's
no, of course.
important.
But what I was going to say as well is like this again was like one of the sort of arguments for making this a series because in the animated movie Batman Year One, Bruce Wayne is a lot more sort of like flagrant and disregarding his sort of like his public persona, to pursue being Batman, and that begins to damage it. But then there's this sort of like arc where he realizes that he needs to keep up pretenses because his family's legacy is important. He's doing it for, or rather, his parents' legacy is important, and he's doing it for his parents. And again, you could have that because, like you said in that scene, he's like, "Oh, you've got to have a chat with the board," and there's a little nugget there. And then, like I said, this movie tries to do so many things, but just touching on them, and that's it. And then you never hear of it again.
You could solve it. You could solve it. And I just want to talk about this briefly, and we'll have a big billionaire hate fest in a minute towards the end. But like, you can solve that by having a scene at the end of the movie where because Batman doesn't really have an arc in this movie. We'll get into that again more. But like,
Mm,
the arc could be at the end of the movie, he realizes that he needs to do both. That he
mm,
needs to continue the philanthropy of his father, and that he needs to be Bruce Wayne. He needs to put on the mask of Bruce Wayne, which is a great thing in Batman. He needs to put
yes.
on the Bruce Wayne mask, and he needs to go out and help the city as Bruce Wayne as well as being Batman. Like
Hmm.
that, the city needs both, and that could be like a nice conclusion as to why he doesn't go with Catwoman and all of
Yeah.
that. But
Even
we don't
even
get it.
even the Telltale game, Batman game, like played on that point. Basically where there are some things, yeah, you need Batman for, but there are some things Batman can't do, and that's why you need Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And like they delivered it perfectly. And again, like I said, touched on it, never came back to it.
Which is baffling in a 2 hour 56 minute movie.
Mm.
Like, you've got time.
um, but yeah, so you had a point about hating on billionaires, I believe.
We will get to that. Next in the movie, though, we have the second death takes place quite quickly after the first one, doesn't it? And is that the police commissioner who gets it?
Yes, it's the police commissioner, and like some of these deaths are pretty gruesome.
Again, it's cool. Like it kind of shows you that this guy's like, and I think they intentionally made him look like Jeffrey Dahmer when we meet him later.
Yes,
But they're
yeah.
really going for that, like this guy eats people's brains for fucking like a Tuesday afternoon fun sort of
It's
thing.
the unassuming, like, if you didn't know he was a deranged killer, you wouldn't look twice. So he'd look at home, or he'd look in place, at a Dungeons and Dragons, game. But but once you see him in the context of a dangerous psychopath, you're like, holy shit, those eyes be dead.
Yeah. So we have the second murder, and again, there's more clues, and you kind of get more of the realization, like when Gordon's files all the photos get sent to the police
Mm.
because they find the thumb drive, which is attached to a thumb. Love that bit. Um, I don't know why it was just like, oh, perfect.
Oh, it's because you're a fucking psychopath, Dave. That's why. You're
Maybe.
watching true
But
crime. You're going, ha,
this is
nice.
this is when we get the reveal of kind of like what the Riddler is trying to do, and I think we know he's called the Riddler at this point as well. But we get the idea that he's trying to because he mentions about Maroney. Is it Maroney? The old gangster who used to run the city.
Yeah, Maroney. Yeah, Sal
Maroney, and we learn
Maroney.
about him going to prison and Falcone's taking it over. And basically, the Riddler's trying to get Batman to kind of like solve this mystery to out all of these corrupt people. We don't find out later that that's
Mm.
what he's trying to do, but we get the idea that the Riddler's he's a crusader. He's not just a random
It's
murderer. He's not killing these
it's
people just to kill them. He's killing these people to send a message. And in his mind, again, like this is a great way to write a villain. It's kind of have like obviously serial killers are all deranged, but they all believe the things that they are
mm,
doing. Everyone believes they're the hero of their own story, and by having the Riddler like paint himself as this like masked
Crusader.
crusader, not
Yeah,
unlike Batman,
we're
like
we're not so different, you and I.
exactly by having that, it kind of like it's more engaging than oh well, I'm just a murderer and I want to be caught. Which we see all the
Hmm.
time.
You can't catch me. Mustache twirl. But yeah, and that's when we come across Catwoman for the first time, who is like
Selena
sort of
Kyle.
Selena Kyle, who's like working as a waitress for Penguin. Which let's take a moment here. Excellent, excellent portrayal of Penguin by Colin Farrell.
I had no idea this was Colin Farrell. I watched the
I knew in
movie. I
advance,
looked at
and
the
I was
cast
like,
and I was like,
"Is it?
Colin Farrell was in
Is
this.
it
Who
Colin
the fuck did
Farrell?"
he
Yeah,
play?
yeah. It's insane. I love sort of proper gangster Penguin as opposed to meh, 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 British. I'm evil Penguin. Um, loved him as like this proper gangster. And again, just goes for my argument again. This could be great as a isolated thing. Okay, now the Penguin is the focus of this. He's corrupting officials, etc. He's got his
This
casino, the
movie
Iceberg Lounge.
this movie nails the bad guys. Like they're
Yes,
interesting, they're
yeah,
engaging. I want to
that's
know
that's
more
a fair
about Penguin.
assessment.
I want to
Mm,
know more about Falcone. I want to know more about the Riddler. Less so about Batman. I think they do a less good job about making Batman interesting. But like
mm.
the way that they've written the bad guys is really, really good. And the scene in the nightclub, like where we meet Penguin, pretty much anytime Falcone's on screen, I think that performance is maybe the best one in the movie. Like I'm really interested and I'm really engaged in what's going on. Zoe Kravitz plays Catwoman in this, and it's a really cool understated performance where
Yeah,
you remember Michelle Pfeiffer in the in Batman Returns.
of course.
Uh, of course, your teenage libido remembers it. That's for sure. Um, but like, that's the cartoonish Catwoman, and in the Nolan
That's
movies,
the villain. Yeah.
we had oh, what's her name?
Oh, so something H. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Let's not drag this out. You Google it while I talk.
Yeah.
And she's kind of like the opposite of that spectrum. So you've got crazy, weird, like really, really sexual, like fucking licking milk up from the street. Michelle Pfeiffer, and then you've got really straight laced cat
Anne
burglar who, for some
Hathaway.
reason, Anne
Anne
Hathaway.
Hathaway. Fuck.
Um, but that's like the really straight laced kind of a bit boring, like spy
Mm.
cat woman who's a cat burglar, isn't particularly evil or like that's something they don't manage in those
Yeah.
movies. Is interesting. Whereas Zoe Kravitz, I think, is doing a really good performance generally. I think she has the best arc in the movie of like
Mm,
she is doing her own thing. She is not stealing. Well, she is stealing, but that's like
yeah.
incidental. She's trying to find out or get to the guy who killed her mum. You know, and that's her personal story that Batman could not give two shits about.
And there's an yeah, exactly. He could not give two fucks. At the start, she's a means to an end, and then he begins
Yeah,
to care for her. What I love as well about
exactly.
this the Selena Kyle character is it's revealed that she's Carmine Falcone's daughter, and I love that they do it just as a throwaway because in the comics there's a story where basically Selena Kyle is the daughter of one of the sort of mob bosses in Gotham, and then she uses that basically to solidify power, and then she becomes the de facto crime
Yeah.
lord of Gotham, which again excellent, and that leaves the door open for it.
Well, she's the other side of the coin to Batman, where
Mm,
Batman is willing to use violence to a point to like achieve good and to help the city, and she's kind of like willing to use violence to achieve her own personal goals. And we see this, and honestly, one of my all my favorite scenes in this movie can either have Falcone or Zoe Kravitz in them. And it's the scene on top of the building with the bat signal where she's got that corrupt cop, and Batman's like, no, no,
mm.
no, don't kill him. Like, you know, don't because you'll regret it. And she's like, I can't remember the line she says, but oh no, sorry, you'll regret it your whole life. Oh no, your life will be over if you kill this man. And she's like, well, I've got 8 more, and she kicks him off the building. And I was
Boom.
like, and that movie, and Batman saves him, which I thought was a bit of a cop out, but like
Well,
that move and the speech
it
and
tracks.
nah, let this guy fucking drop to the ground. Batman can try
That's
and
not
save
what
him,
Batman does, though. Yeah. Well, yeah. True. True.
but it's a great character moment for Selena Kyle where you're like, yeah, she doesn't see anything wrong with killing somebody.
Mm,
Like, and that's kind of like the core of the Catwoman thing and why Catwoman and Batman have such a good back and forth and why they can never, they can never end up together because
yeah.
there's this core like misunderstanding, where
Hmm.
this core disconnect where she'll fucking murder a guy if she thinks that's what she needs to do, whereas Batman would never do that, like which we see in other films when he could kill the Joker and he doesn't.
Hmm.
Like Batman, that's one of his core ideals is he doesn't kill people,
Yeah.
you know. Whereas
Exactly.
Catwoman's like, this guy deserves to be dead. He'll be better off dead. I'll be better off if he's dead, so I'm going to kill him.
Yeah, I'm
And we
doing
see a
everyone a
bit of that
favor.
later
Yeah.
on, but it's
Yeah.
again, there was loads in this movie I really like.
Yeah.
There's just even more
That's
I
the
don't
thing.
like.
But and then we get to the point then where he comes across. I think it's the third victim then, isn't it? Where it's the DA, and this is after Batman uses Selena Kyle as a sort of like
Yeah, we get the cool
as
like
a human
Batman
drone.
spent
Yeah,
Batman
where
spent
it's
$5 billion developing
on a
this
contact lens camera. Yeah.
contact lens camera
Yeah.
with
And so
space alien technology. Presumably, he could have rebuilt Gotham for that money. But and that's a cool scene. And again, like building up their relationship. And we meet the DA, and then
mm,
Bruce Wayne goes to the memorial or the funeral, the memorial service for the police commissioner, I think, or the
yes.
mayoral candidate.
Yep.
And the DA, who we see,
Basically smashes a car through the cathedral. He's got a phone strapped to his hand and a bomb strapped around his neck, which is horrendous. And basically, then the call starts ringing, and it's for Batman again. So Batman then shows up, and then you
and the
have the
police are
series
like,
of
Batman's got this. Again, I
oh
could maybe do with just let's have the police be like, no, fuck this vigilante cunt.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Like, we're the police. This is our job.
They're very eager to go. Oh, thank God Batman's here. Thank God he showed up.
Well, they're not quite like because they don't trust him to do anything. You see when they try and arrest him later, but
Yeah.
like at the same time, they're quite happy for him to just come in and you know, destroy a crime scene, or he's come into the station, Batman, and read all of our evidence and access our archives. Like, we're happy for you to do that. He's got like a fucking visitor's badge almost.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, they don't like him. It's a very badly done thing in this movie.
Yeah.
But
So
the scene with the DA, very cool. Good standoff.
absolutely. And then there's a series of riddles, and then the sort of DA being coaxed into answering these questions and incriminate himself. It sort of revealed that he was protecting people. The sort of the Sal Maroni crime bust isn't all that it seems. And then he blows up. And I think we need to reel through some of these scenes, Dave. Otherwise, we'll be here like for 2 hours and 56
No, we'll
minutes.
get there, Ross, because like there aren't that many more plot movements. Is what I'm trying to hit on. Is like a lot of this movie is a 40-minute scene that doesn't need to take place. So after we have the DA blow up, really cool scene, well shot. We can see what's happening. There's a weird thing where the police pick up Batman, put him on a gurney, drive him to the police station. No one thinks to take his mask off.
Yeah.
And I think that's just bad editing or bad directing. And we have Batman breaks with the cops, basically, where he has to punch Jim Gordon in the face and they don't trust him. And again, we're seeing more of the corruption come out, aren't we?
Yeah. But there was a great sort of moment there because it was sort of like they were already too well prepared to go, okay, we're going to pretend to have this bust up now. And then Batman proceeds to crack him across the jaw and then he legs it out of the station. But it seems like this has been bubbling for some time when they knew it was going to come to this. And again, like you say, it's a comment on that corruption, how, okay, they ain't going to like this.
But it's also Batman being stupid. Like, maybe Batman, you shouldn't be fucking walking into crime scenes with 40 cops every day.
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's making
maybe a
them
bit of
think,
stealth.
who does this guy think he is? Whereas if you were this mysterious figure, like you've got a bit more cachet. They know it's the guy in it's like the guy in the leather gimp suit who just comes to all the crime scenes. Like, it's so bizarre that it's accepted that that's a thing.
And then once he escapes and he gets up the stairs and he jumps off the roof and he has this like flight suit, which is pretty cool. But
he falls 15 stories and he's fine.
Yeah. Well, no, he has the gliding suit, doesn't he? He fucking like
Doesn't
slams no, he slams right into a bridge, doesn't he? But it did highlight one thing for me, and that is like in the previous movies there was a function to Batman's cape, and in this one, not really. There's no
I
other
think that's
than
maybe going back to like the comic books. So we talked about Batman as a symbol. Like the cape is part of the costume, and the costume is part of the mythos, and like that's all very intentional for Batman as this thing of fear. So that's what the cape is there for, I suppose.
true, but it's also like, because it's Batsuit, it's all like about functionality as well. I mean, if you're gonna go about, like a cape, why not have claws on your toes and stuff like that? Do you know what I mean? Like, but they got around that in previous movies by having a function for that, and it looked pretty cool as well. But there was no.
I just think the cape is like, it makes him look bigger in the dark. Like it makes him look enormous and scary, and this is big silhouette. And I think it like legitimately, it's a big part of why, especially if you go back in the comic books, it's a big part of why Batman is scary. If he's fucking looks like any ninja that you might see, it's not a scary. It's just a guy, isn't it? But then when he's wearing the cape and the hat and he's got that bat silhouette, you're like,
it's the sum of its parts. Yeah,
exactly. So it's an important, like I said, it's an important part of the costume. So I want to touch on the car chase just briefly because I think this happens now.
Yes. Yeah. Well, him and Gordon meet up again at that place where they see the bat symbol, and then they go after Penguin. Yeah.
With Catwoman whistling the Kyle, and
she just shows up.
This is where they find the body of her friend, who's been killed by Falcone, I believe.
Yes.
And there's a load of money, and Batman thinks basically this is going to lead him to the rat. They're trying to find basically the Riddler's told them that there was a rat. There was somebody who sold
with wings.
There was somebody who sold out Falcone. Somebody who sold out Maroni. And that to cover something bigger up, and we don't quite know what that is yet, but Batman thinks it's this. It's not. This is Penguin doing a fucking bunch of drug dealing or whatever. So we have a 45-minute chase with a fairly forgettable Batmobile. I think it would have been fine.
Do you think? I thought the Batmobile was pretty cool. I thought it was a pretty, like, again, for a starter Batmobile, it was pretty badass, I thought. I liked it more than the Tumbler, to be honest.
I just think this is a really shit chase scene. I think that the way it's shot is really poor. I think it goes on way too long, and it's kind of
the lighting could be much, much, much better. I grant you.
It's not even that, Ross.
I know
you're
not keen on the chasing. I quite liked it.
Why is Batman chasing the Penguin? Like, I know that they ask him a couple of questions and then let him go at the end, but like, he doesn't seem like, apart from saying that the Spanish is wrong, you could have fucking talked to Spanish teacher. anyone who's
Google
Spanish,
Translate.
Google Translate, like,
World's greatest detective.
you know, maybe your fucking NSA level spy software Batman would have like been able to figure this out. But
Yep.
apart from that, he doesn't really add anything to this other than, but they already know he's not guilty of the big crime at this point. So the whole thing, the whole like, and it's not 45 minutes, but legitimately, I think here's 20 minutes of just car chase. But it's a bad car chase.
Harsh.
We've seen a lot of good car chases on this podcast, Ross.
Yeah.
And this is not one of them. And I just think that it takes up a lot of the movie, which is already very long, and doesn't really add anything other than a producer probably or an executive said, we need to have a Batmobile and we need to have a Batmobile scene. And I just think that's a shit reason to have something in your movie to sell toys.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's not
quite, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, could they have cut it down? Sure, but I think if they sorted the lighting a bit better, that like I quite liked it, and I quite seeing what this sort of like starter starter Batmobile was capable of. And you get to see the cool thing about the one of the iconic things of the Batmobile was like that thruster thing in the back, and and that big blue flame, and you had that with this yoke. Didn't look like the sort of iconic Batmobiles or the Thunderbot. No, I know you're not keen on it. I am.
I just think it could have been Falcone, and it could have been Catwoman on a motorbike, and Batman is Batmobile chasing Falcone. Batman catches him, and you could have her trying to kill Falcone scene play out there, and then the whole sequence would have loads of weight that it doesn't have here, because they catch the guy, they ask him how to spell these Spanish words, and then they let him go. And it's just bad editing, and it offends me as a movie watcher because it's wasting my time. Like, I want to watch this movie and enjoy it, but this is like, we're having a car chase scene just to have a car chase scene, and that's fine in a lot of movies, like a lot of action movies, but not this, which is trying to be a bit more introspective. Next, we move on, I believe, to the orphanage.
Yeah, and this is where
kind of like the final piece of the Riddler puzzle, I suppose, isn't it? Well, the penultimate piece.
Well, what he believes is the final piece, isn't it? Where basically he's showing Batman now that Thomas Wayne is portrayed to be not all that he seems, that he's like quite nefarious, that he's paying off the mafia to sort of silence the press.
Might have had this press guy killed.
Yeah.
And it's all like again tearing down the father. And with this is where it emerges that the kind of like the thing that the Riddler is trying to expose is this: before Thomas Wayne died, he for some reason set up like a trust, a $1 billion trust, to be a charitable thing for Gotham, but he died before he could really like decide what to do with any of it. And the whole idea of the movie is that the Riddler's outraged because this billionaire who looks to be corrupt based on the evidence of this dead press guy and things like that, and his wife's dodgy upbringing and things like that, basically set up this $1 billion slush fund, which then in the 30 intervening years or whatever, all of the bad guys have basically been embezzling from.
Yeah.
Which obviously Bruce Wayne knows nothing about, but like that's why Maroni was taken down and Falcone is the rat with wings, is because basically everyone else wanted a bigger slice of the pie and Maroni was the biggest guy getting it. So they took him down so that the mayor and the DA and Falcone and the Penguin, so everyone else could continue to embezzle this money that was meant to help the people of Gotham. And that's a really powerful message where I'm like, shit, is the Riddler the good guy?
See, yeah, but again, like a Riddler, up until this point, he was spouting fact, information like shit, yeah. And then when he's spouting that thing about Thomas Wayne, you're like, oh shit. And again, this could have been a good thing where you actually bring a fault to the people in Batman's life who were above reproach, and then you suddenly find out, oh shit, my dad wasn't squeaky clean. But then it turns out that actually no, it wasn't. It wasn't like that. Alfred set things straight, but it would have been better, I think, if there was a little bit of.
I think there's still a bit of a bit of humanizing of Thomas Wayne here, where he didn't actually ask Falcone to kill this guy, but he did go to a gangster and ask him to make a threaten this guy.
Mm.
And so I think there is a certain amount of like, yeah, like your dad was human, he made mistakes. I think that's maybe the message that Alfred's
Yeah.
trying to impart on Bruce, rather than no, your
And
dad was a saint. It's like, no, your dad was human and he made mistakes, and this was a bad mistake and it got someone killed.
he imparts that from a hospital bed, because between finding out about
No
Tom
one dies from
Quinn,
explosions in this movie. It's impossible. Everyone's superhuman.
the DA fucking died with the bomb around his neck.
Batman had the guy, yeah, and that bomb blew up in Batman's face and he was fine.
But he covered his mouth
But
because
he's got
everything
plot
else.
armor, Ross, is what he's got.
It's plot
Um,
armor, yeah. But then anyway,
and again, like fucking hell movie. Stop being a pussy. Kill Alfred. Like, kill somebody in this movie, please.
it goes on even longer, and then do you know? I feel like we're just like going through the movie bit by bit, and I think we should go
No.
middle,
We've not
middle.
got too much left, Ross, and there's some important stuff to touch on. I think we want to
Okay.
give this movie a fair treatment because there's some sort of stuff that's still to go that I liked, and there's some stuff still to go.
We've got, we can give it a fair treatment without going through the movie bit by bit. You know, like what's the next important thing?
Well, I
that you
want to
think
talk
is
about
worth-
the plot. The important thing is the plot and how the
Okay.
movie from this point, Ross, drops it. Just go with me here. Just relax.
I'm with you.
Go with me. So we have the Alfred deathbed scene, where Thomas Wayne is resurrected in Bruce Wayne's mind, etc., etc. But this is what I'm saying. So at this point in the movie, the Riddler's kind of got everything he wants. Like the kind of Batman has most of the pieces here. You just need the final confrontation with Falcone again. And I mentioned before how this is the most engaging bit of the movie because it's where our main plot with the Riddler meets the Selena Kyle Catwoman plot, which we have. So we have her invading the nightclub to kill Falcone, which I think absolute banging performance from both of
Brilliant
them.
scene. Yeah, brilliant scene.
Yeah, cool Batman scene where he's fighting his way through the nightclub as well. Again, good fight choreography. He is just like pounding meat.
Not in that way.
No, but like he's not like doing like the kung fu fighting that even Christian Bale
He's
does
not
some of in
masturbating,
his
is what I'm
movies.
saying.
Yeah, I'm not. Obviously, he's not masturbating. Everyone's seen the movie, Ross. They haven't listened to an hour of this podcast and not watched the movie.
There's an excellent scene where basically he's in the last hallway before he gets to Maroni, and like he's cut the power, and there's like 6-7 guys with guns, and he's coming through the hallway, and the only thing that lights up the hallway is like the muzzle flash as they're trying to shoot at him, and like one by one they're just basically getting knocked out, and you only see that snippet like from a strobe light sort of effect. Love that.
We get a lot of that in Daredevil. We got a lot of that in that movie as well.
Oh yeah,
series. That's in that series. Sorry, the new one. Of like that really cool hallway scene where you kind of like see a flash every couple of seconds. It's a really cool shot and it's well used here. And again, to his credit, I think Robert Pattinson has been pretty good up until this point. Like apart from the emo-y scenes, apart from them, he's been pretty good.
Apart from
Zoe
Bruce Wayne,
Kravitz though, MVP of this movie. I'm going to talk for a minute, Ross. Can you find me the name of the actor who played Falcone?
yes.
But like you have this confrontation where she reveals to Falcone that she's his daughter because he knows her as a waitress at this club he runs, where she reveals that she's his daughter. And
John Turturro.
Oh, to John Turturro, of course, who we've seen he was in The Colour of Money.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
He was the shithead that Paul Newman employed before he got Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
His performance great because he's just a sleazebag. He's just a sleazy, corrupt. Well, actually, he's a mobster, so he's already quite corrupt. And you have Zoe Kravitz confronting him and saying, like, you killed my mother. And then, of course, he tries to kill her, which I think is great again. And he's basically like, "Oh, I can't believe you made me have to do this."
Yeah.
Which is
Can't you see how much this is hurting me?
Yeah, your mother did it. I had to kill your mother as well because of because she made me do it. And it's like, again, movie writing your villains very, very well because like most bad people don't think they're bad people. They believe they're shit. And Falcone isn't some like fucking sewer crocodile like we have in a lot of the comics and the cartoons and stuff. He's just this like criminal. And so, yeah, of course, he believes that this woman is making him a killer because She's challenged
Oh,
his
what else
reality.
is he gonna do? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a well choreographed scene as well, where he's on top of
Mm.
her trying to like choke her to death with this pole,
The
and
pool
she
cue.
scratches
Yeah.
him with the long nails.
Yeah.
Was it a pool cue? Was Paul
Pool
Newman in
cue.
this movie? Is this The Color of Money?
It's the sequel, unofficial sequel.
John Turturro still in a pool hall, still doing loads of cocaine.
Still terrible at pool. So at
And
this
this
point
is
now,
where
go on.
well, this is the art where this is where you're not going to get out of this early, Ross. It's just we're gonna do what we're gonna do. Stop giving me that look. This is the point where the Catwoman arc kind of like comes full circle, and we kind of have the
Mm.
where she doesn't kill him, where Batman convinces
Yeah.
her that that would be the wrong thing to do, and
Bring
that
him
by
in,
killing
make an
him,
example out of him.
basically
Yeah.
he's not going to suffer. He's not going to, lose the things that matter to him. And it's kind of like this. It's a good moment for Batman and Catwoman as like a, as a romantic thing, and it's a
Yeah.
great thing for her character in terms of like, yeah, I really do believe she rides off into the sunset because her business has been resolved in this movie. What happens next for us?
So, well, basically, Batman sort of gives him the perp walk, gives Carmine Falcone the perp walk, where they walk him through the club, and they come out then to the steps.
This is a trope.
Oh, and the whole GCPD is waiting for them there. And then he gives a little speech about how he's going to beat it, of course. And then, there's a little back and forth between him and the Penguin. This is, of course, where Penguin has found out that Carmine Falcone was the rat. And basically threatens him, enjoy your first night in Blackgate because it's going to be your last, which excellent. And then Penguin pulls out a gun, but gets, and then there's a gunshot. Penguin hasn't shot him, but there's a shooter in the window. Middle. Turns out it was the Riddler's apartment. So Batman busts up there, starts looking through, and then the cops show up. And then they get a call where basically, there's a guy around the corner at a cafe, diner, rather.
Yeah.
And he's just having a coffee, and that's where we come across the Riddler. We see his face for the first time, and like you said, Dave, this is the Jeffrey Dahmer looking face.
He's
Jesus.
just a dude.
Yeah,
A nerdy looking dude for sure.
So, unassuming, so unassuming.
Yeah, maybe he needs to get out in the sun a bit more, but he's just a guy.
Yeah. So then they arrest him, and then they investigate his flat, and then they find some more clues for Batman. And why don't you take it away, Dave?
Well, this is kind of the point for me where the movie should have finished.
Should have ended.
Several minutes.
Yeah.
The Falcone being killed should have been the end of this movie, because we get this wild, boring interrogation scene. Because the Riddler knows who Batman is, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so he's basically saying that and this is where I don't quite understand why he's doing what he's doing, because up to this point, his kind of like the thing that he's doing is he wants to out all of these miserable, horrible villains as villains. He wants to out these people who are allegedly, the police, the mayor, the DA. He wants to out them as assholes because he's a poor person, and poor people have suffered in this city for decades because this money was there to help the city and to build social programs and affordable housing and go into the school system and all of these great things that the movie is not interested in going into. And that's great. And he hates Bruce Wayne because Bruce Wayne, he's an orphan, but he basically takes all the attention away from all the other people who are suffering because, but he's a billionaire, so it's it's not fine. That he's an
One
orphan,
little
but,
rich boy loses his parents, and then let's all
yeah,
stop
just
for
fucking
him.
sit at home and count your money and shut up whinging. Yeah, it's very sad, but one is not the same as the other. Yeah, you lost your parents, and that's horrible. But one orphan got to go home and live in a mansion, and lots of orphans get to fucking starve on the street. And again, that's really powerful. I think that's the message of this movie, that the movie isn't really interested in getting behind, but that's the message. But then the upshot of that, for some reason, the Riddler, who up to this point has been psychotic and insane, obviously, and a serial killer, but in a fairly coherent fashion, he's right, so what I'm going to do, question mark, Riddler symbol, is blow up the seawall and flood the city. And you're like, huh?
Yeah.
Which you think,
but he's got these followers.
You think it's going to be, we're going to have one final action sequence and Batman's going to save the day. He doesn't. He doesn't save the day.
Yeah, it blows up.
So, but it's an extra 30 minutes of the movie, and I'm like,
there was no,
but why?
He could have just
we achieved there?
He could have thwarted the bombs. and you still have the fight scenes and stuff. But like it came about then that the Riddler has all. This is why I'm saying, man, like they tried to put a trilogy into the one movie because you could have had it where the sequel was the Riddler now has all these followings and now he's still controlling things from behind bars and then he escapes and then you could have that. Because the thing is
You
with
have the
Batman
lead in, don't you?
movies,
You have the lead in at the end of this movie, is what you should
yeah,
have, where the
the,
Riddler's in prison and he knows something you don't know, and he's not worried about being in prison, and you're like, that's concerning.
yeah. The thing is, well, like the stakes need to continually rise. So basically, in the first Batman movie, it should be like quite isolated stakes where you're taking on Carmine Falcone. Oh, this mob boss going to take him down, and and then when you're also dealing with the Riddler as well. Okay, now he's behind bars. Got him. Sweet. And like you say, he's not too worried. Oh, that's a concern. Moving into the second one now. Now basically he's got these minions, these followers, and then there's another big name villain at large that you got to take care of too. And the end of this, then basically, you thwarted the Riddler once and for all, but then there's something else happening. And that leads you into the third movie, then, where basically the stakes have never been higher. The whole city is in danger. There's bombs and explosions and blah and gas. That's what you want to do. But I tried to like, there's like, you've stated the runtime of this movie so many times, Dave, and I forgot it was this long. But it got to the point where like, this is what I mean by like, it was trying to cram a whole trilogy into one movie.
Ross, you are absolutely 100% right. I will say the one thing it avoids is doing the origin story. So let's look at the Nolan trilogy just briefly. First movie, you have the mystical Asian training and Batman becoming Batman. That's fine. Second movie, you've got the Joker, like I said, in this movie, the Riddler, the big villain, and he is defeated at the end of the movie. But all is not well. Third movie, you blow the city up, and it's great. And there were good things about that movie, and things that in this trilogy, this imagined trilogy, if you'd blown up the seawall at the end of the second movie,
you're dealing with the remnants of that.
Really cool third movie where the city's underwater and like it's basically like New Orleans after the hurricane, and like
there's an excellent story basically in Batman in the New 52, and it was Batman 0 Year, and basically middle Batman's just Bruce Wayne's just come back, and this is the origin of the Joker as Red Hood and all that there, but essentially manages to thwart the Red Hood, but the Riddler basically managed to take over Wayne Tech, etc., take over the city, and Batman is thought dead, and basically he blows the actually similar to the movie, he blows the seawall. And basically, Batman wakes up, and basically seemingly only weeks have passed, but like there's all this new vegetation, and basically it comes about that poison ivy has like grown over the city, so it looks like 20 years have passed. But this was the 0 Year, but again, it's blown up the city wall. Now Riddler's taken over, and now you've got to thwart him now and he's this evil mastermind.
A bit like the third Nolan movie with Bane.
Yes, exactly. So that's what I was saying. Like what you're describing is
the city is just mad. You've got them like lynching people in the town hall, and like
exactly
all of that is really cool, but it's a lot to cram into your first movie. And it's also like not a good ending. There's one thing I want to talk about in a pedantly casty way, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. It's Batman's fight juice. So we have quite a long scene where Batman's beating up and getting shot by identical like
fight milk. That's all I can think.
Bat milk.
Bat milk.
And he's like fighting, and he keeps getting shot, and you're like, well, the ballistic qualities of armor, like you're going to be bruised and it's going to hurt and all of that, but Batman's like strong and committed, and then
committed, all about them gains.
He's like endurance is, and that's another Batman thing. Is like Batman is the guy. He is that boxer who will like he can't see, he can't hear. Like
I can do this all day.
He's swaying on the spot and he gets back up. That's Batman. And again, it's something that they nail in this scene, but it's stupid because he gets shot with a shotgun in like the chest or the stomach or something. And obviously,
which, by the way, broken ribs all day.
All of your ribs are broken.
Yeah.
And he falls off the bridge, and then basically Catwoman comes and saves the day. And I like that. I like that she turns up.
Yeah.
But there's one last villain, and she helps Batman up, and they're having a cool moment again. Like I think that the light touch they have with the romance aspect in this movie is really, really, really good. Where it's like it's almost will they, won't they? And there's obviously this chemistry between them, but nothing's ever done. She rolls off. She's been killed by this guy, or being killed, I should say, in the process of being killed. And Batman can't even like sit up. He's so injured, and he gets this green liquid, which we've never seen before, and is not explained, out of his bat purse. Plugs it into his like looking 23rd century exoskeleton drug injector suit.
He's got a little, he's got a little circle or a hole or something that he can inject stuff into. Yeah,
And then which I liked, it's fine. And
yeah,
then he gets up and goes aggro on this guy again. Cool scene. Like, oh, he's just taking a load of fucking amphetamines,
yeah.
and so he can, like they did in World War II, and he's gonna beat the living shit out of this guy.
See, I thought it
And
was
then,
Venom.
well, I think it's a thing and it's fine, but you kind of need Batman to then sag and be like, "Oh well, I'm fucked again. That was just like an adrenaline shot because I needed to save, and
Adrenaline.
it's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
do bad things to me, but I needed to save your life because I care about you, and that would have been nice." But then he's like, "Right, I'm fine now because I've had my fight juice, so I'm gonna jump off this building and spend the entire day rescuing people from this fucking flood."
yeah.
And it's
Oh,
I think that's just
yeah,
bad movie making. Like, you can't have him being beaten up and broken and like nearly dead, and then he's fine, because you've trusted me, the audience, to understand that this is somewhat based in reality. Like, not but somewhat like reality, and it's just lazy. I think. I don't know whether you
yeah.
agree.
No, well, I don't know if it's lazy, but essentially, I quite liked it because when I saw it was like green substance, I thought, oh, Venom, is this like a throwaway or is it leading into something new? So I was quite into it. I get what you're saying, but like, well, once that adrenaline passes, you are just going to basically collapse because you are done then. So yeah, you might kick the shit out of these people, but you're not going to stay around for the rescue mission. You're done. Um, haven't said I wasn't that. I didn't
This
care
didn't bother
that
you. I
much.
really thought this would
No,
bother you because it bothered me.
I think by that point, once you get as old as you are, once you've watched a movie like this, from watching a movie like this rather, you're just
You've
like,
aged from watching this movie. Yeah.
yeah, I'm now
Did you
from my
say you
20s.
saw this at the cinema, by the way?
Yeah.
Did you have to like rent a room or something?
It was, I think it was because I was still getting used to the hours. So, like, basically, I had literally just woken up and gone to the cinema. So, I was wide awake and I had all that sugary Coke and popcorn. So, I was ready to rock. Um,
Did you fight
yeah,
juice?
fight milk, bat milk. Um, I just, yeah, like the thing is, like, I remember at the cinema just mainly enjoying it. Yeah, there was some things could have done better, but mainly enjoying it. Now on the rewatch, I'm like, what? What did I experience? And it must be, so it makes me think two things. One, there's a lot to be said for theater experience. You know, going to the cinema, watching a movie, being completely bored.
Now, especially with Sam not here because he hates the cinema, but like, yeah, I'm with you, Ross. There is something about the magic of the cinema where
Of
you
course,
like a movie a lot
cinema.
more than the movie deserves just because you've seen it on the big screen with a load of other people.
But also because there's no distraction. You're not allowed your phone out. It's unacceptable, and you are completely enthralled within it. The next thing then as well is, like we said at the start, like I was sort of joking. Now I'm not so much joking. Is that we just watched the Da Vinci Code, so like watching the guy's eyes dart left and right as he figures out a puzzle. Aha! Eureka! Batrika! I've got it.
Paprika.
Just now. So, but yeah, I'm surprised how much I found wrong with this movie, considering how much I remember enjoying it in the cinema.
Yeah, and conversely, I don't disagree at all. This is the first time I'd seen it. I had seen that it was on streaming for free, and hadn't bothered renting it basically because I hadn't heard loads of good stuff. Because I
Yeah,
think
I,
the
I am.
fans don't really like this. I think the critics like it, but the fans
And
don't.
I don't get. Yeah, that makes sense. The critics like it, but yeah, and the fans not liking it says a lot. The thing is, I you said that you remember this was free on it, and I'm like I am a bit regretful that this is the first Batman movie we've covered because you'd want it to be one that you enjoy, like the one with Heath Ledger
Didn't we
or
do? Didn't we do Batman Forever or Batman and Robin? The one with Arnie in it. We did.
no, oh shit, we did. Previously on Imaginary Movie Podcast.
Actually, this would have been a much, much better movie to watch than that as the first Batman movie.
Yeah, yeah.
But
fuck.
Yeah, I mean, let's do final thoughts and maybe like some quick fixes. And I have got like a very quick fire little quiz thing. It's not a quiz, but we'll get to that in a sec.
Looking forward to that. But final thoughts for me is, like I said, they tried to cram a lot into it. They're trying to cram 3 movies into one. I think final thoughts are they have touched on so many interesting facets and then just left them there. It feels like a magpie was sort of writing this, like something shiny. Oh, and then we're gonna have the Riddler, and he's gonna be a psychopath. Oh, and then we're gonna have Thomas Wayne. Is he all that he seems? Oh, and then we're gonna have Batman's suit. Do you remember, like, Dave? Do you remember the hype over Batman's suit when the Batman was being recorded? There was supposed to be like some meaning behind, like the bat symbol. Like it was supposed to be like the gun that was like broken down.
Yeah, it's a bat.
Yeah. But it was supposed to be like, because it's all metal, it was supposed to be like, the rumor was that it was like the metal broken down from the gun that killed Batman's parents, but there was nothing alluded to in the movie regarding that. So many things touched on that could have been wonderful, but just gone to waste. That's my final thought.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I was actually kind of surprised having watched this, and especially talking about it. Like, I'm surprised about how much I liked. Because, like, as we mentioned, I liked lots and lots of scenes in this movie. I liked one of the major plots. I liked most of the rest of the other plot. I just didn't like how they interacted with each other. And the biggest thing, I think, is I really would have loved, like, I think I'd have a much more positive opinion of this movie if the last scene of it was the realization from Batman that he needs Bruce Wayne. That, like...
Yes. Well, I said that,
because that really appeals to me in this movie, especially in the fucking economic hellscape we exist in now, where billionaires control everything. The idea that, that the rich people are wrong in this movie, which is certainly the Riddler's opinion, that by the end of the movie, essentially the rhetoric is, no, fine, it was just bad guys being bad guys.
Yeah.
Like, billionaires don't need to do anything. And
it's just a few bad apples, yeah.
Not enough people, because the mayoral candidate, the woman who comes to Bruce Wayne, and basically, she's the only character in the movie who's basically like, listen, Mr. Wayne, you're a fucking billionaire, you need to do more. And, like, that's a good scene that you kind of need the end of the movie to be, right, so get rid of this seawall nonsense. They've arrested the Riddler, and the new mayor's elected the woman we've met. And Bruce Wayne stands up next to her and gives a speech and says, my father once had a dream of rebuilding this city from the ground up and making it better for the people who live here. And he says, and I believe with Mayor such and such that we are headed in the right direction. And I'm going to pledge X amount of support from the Wayne Foundation towards these social projects. And, like,
could not agree more.
And that would have been, if that had been the end of this movie, Ross, I think we'd be talking about the best Batman movie ever made. Like, I'm not even joking. If you cut out the last, the seawall bit at the end of the movie, didn't change, even if you didn't change anything else.
Have him thwart the bomb rather than have it explode, but have him thwart it, save the mayor, and then basically Bruce Wayne shows up, like you say, and basically says, Gotham can be better. You need better from us, and, blah blah blah.
Yeah, and that, honestly, I think would have made this, like I said, probably the best, most true to the character Batman film we'd seen.
Yeah.
I will say, because we hadn't mentioned it, I really, really liked the face paint gang at the beginning. I thought that was a great nod to the comics in a non-cartoony way, and the way that the guy who's like doing his like initiations only got half his face painted.
Yeah.
And the movie shows you all this, but it doesn't tell you any of it. And that's just, again, loads in this movie I liked. And that's the takeaway, is that I kind of, part of me hopes that, and the seemingly it's not looking good for DC films. But, like, part of me really hopes that they do make a sequel to this and that we do get more of Patman.
Patman. Pat Fleck.
Pat Fleck makes no sense, Ross. But part of me hopes we do get that, or even, honestly, like a spin-off Selena Kyle movie. But it's not a Batman movie, Ross. She's not fighting villains. It's like an Ocean's 11 type movie, but with...
That would be good, actually. That would be good.
That would be good. but a frustrating movie. A bit like, we watched the Justice League and we were like, yeah, we like this and we like that, but ultimately it's the whole package.
I love the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, I know you did, Ross, and you made us watch it, and now you've made us watch another 3-hour-long DC movie that all takes place at night, and everyone's wearing black.
I will get Sam to watch the MCU.
Please, I'd love the MCU, Ross. I would love the lightness and the short movies in the MCU.
Oh, I'll do it. I'll fucking do it.
This was the longest. This was the longest comic book movie ever, by the way, theatrical.
Oh wow!
It's about 3 minutes longer than Endgame.
Jesus Christ!
Which was a horrendously long movie.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to do, Ross, before we go, because I know you're tired. It's not a quiz. It's not a quiz. I want us to very quickly. Let's not put loads and loads of thought into this. Let's rank the Batman movies. What's the best one?
Oh, has to be the one with Heath Ledger.
We disagree.
Surely. Has to be the one with Heath Ledger, surely.
The Dark Knight.
Or Batman Begins.
I'm going to surprise you, Ross.
I'm going to surprise
you, and I'm going to say Batman Returns.
The one with Penguin?
Yeah.
That is a good one.
Do you know what it is though? It's like it's the opposite of the Dark Knight. It's the cartoon movie. It's the live action cartoon movie.
Yeah.
And I love that about it. I love Danny DeVito. I love Christopher Walken as the mayor.
Yeah.
I love Michelle Pfeiffer
for
obvious reasons. See Teenage
Her
Libido. Acting. But like there's something about that movie that's just like it holds a place in my mind as like this kind of like the wild carnival of a movie. I do think The Dark Knight's probably most people's answers, but in terms of those Nolan movies, I suspect that you're probably right, and maybe Batman Begins, in hindsight, is maybe the better movie.
But also I think like if you look at like the Nolan movies, and although I remember you and Dave, or you and Sam rather, saying before that if you watch them now, they might be a bit tedious or might run a bit long, and that's fair. But you have to look at them from the time when they released. And I think I don't know, they like, because obviously like it's an understatement to say like Heath Ledger's performance is incredible, but also like Christian Bale is like one of like the top actors, and the guy and like what he puts himself through, but also he absolutely gets he embodies like the Batman. I remember I was like watching an interview with Tom Hardy, when he was playing Bane after the movie came out, and he was saying like, because Tom Hardy's like does Brazilian jiu-jitsu, he's a proper like tough lad.
Do you have your Bane modulator?
1 second. Let me get this up.
Oh, you think darkness is your life? You merely adopted the darkness. I was born in it.
This is my favourite bit. I do think you're right. The Dark Knight's probably the biggest Batman movie ever. It certainly had the biggest splash. I remember Sam, if you can fucking imagine this, by the way, Sam went to the cinema like 6 times to see that movie.
For a guy who doesn't like
our Sam, a guy who hates the cinema and everything about it.
That's amazing. I do remember seeing. I went with a friend, and he'd already seen like twice already. He was like, "You're in for a treat." And I'm like, "Yeah, I like Batman. Whatever." This is before I really got into Batman, and I watched it, and I was like, "Oh, damn!" I was like, "Oh, that's going to be Two-Face." And he's like, "Just watch." And then, like I said, that bit where they arrested Two-Face, I was like, or arrested Joker. I was like, "Oh, it's over now." I was like, "Oh, that was really good." And I'm like, "Oh shit, there's more! Oh fuck!"
Yeah.
It
was a real cinema experience. I don't even think I'd seen Batman Begins when I saw that movie.
Worst Batman movie?
The worst one is probably Batman and Robin. I think. Which one did we watch? The George Clooney one.
Oh, there's 2. Oh no, yeah, that is the worst.
One George Clooney one and one Val Kilmer one, and we're not including the Adam West ones. I just think because I haven't seen
George
them
Clooney.
In
a
million years.
George Clooney one.
I think it's the George Clooney ones.
Worst.
It's the nipples.
It's the nipples. It's the self-referential shit where they think they're being, and you're like,
it's all the needless shots of latex-clad bums.
Yeah,
like lingering shots of George Clooney's ass.
Rubber cod pieces. Yeah,
it's. I think that's the worst one by a country mile. I think the second worst one is probably the Val Kilmer.
I like the Val Kilmer one only because I love Jim Carrey as Riddler and I love Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. It's campy, but fuck, is it fun to watch?
All right,
I think
all right. So where do we stand on the standing? So
I think second worst is
first is probably Dark
actually
Knight. First is probably Dark Knight,
Dark Knight.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think Batman Returns belongs in the top 3, but like I'm
Okay,
willing to defer to you
okay. Well,
as
let's
to
put it.
whether. Go on.
Did you
So
say returns or begins?
in my mind, the top 3 are The Dark Knight, Batman Begins, and Batman Returns,
Yeah, I'll
probably
go.
in that order.
I'd accept that. Worst,
So
the worst, like we say, is Batman and Robin.
yeah,
Second worst, I actually think, is The Dark Knight Rises.
yeah, that movie has a lot of stuff.
To
It's
answer
bad for a lot
for.
of the reasons that this movie was bad. Like it's
Yeah,
really long, and it kind of picks up loads of interesting things, and then throws them out the window. You know, our typical thing,
that's.
like, oh yeah, this is really
Mm,
cool. It's really cool. The city's under martial law, and the cops are all locked in the sewers, and yeah, don't worry about that. It's fine. No, we on to the next thing. Don't worry about
mm.
that.
Where are the cops going to the toilet? What? Where are they going to the toilet? Well, they're in the
Because
sewers.
they're
Yeah,
in the
but
sewer. Where do you
they're
think all the toilet
trapped.
stuff
So where,
goes?
so where do they shit? No, well, they shit where they are. Okay, so they're stuck there for 6 months. You're overthinking it. I don't think you've thought it through.
No, yeah, I would actually probably say that is probably the second worst Batman movie. I'm gonna
And then
have to say the Val Kilmer one's got to be the third worst, Ross.
yeah, just above that Val Kilmer one.
Uh,
And then the
what?
first.
Go on,
I was going to say then the first Batman movie with is it Michael Keaton,
Michael Keaton. Yeah.
right in the middle, right in the middle.
Would you say that's above or below Batman versus Superman? Which I'm going to throw in as like that is a Batman movie.
It would be above Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, I agree. I don't, and again,
Mm.
Batman versus Superman's kind of like this movie and a lot of DC movies where there's a lot that I like about them, but it doesn't actually make for a
Have
good
you
movie.
have you seen? Because if we were including like animated Batman movies, oh man, we should actually
Oh, it's
review one of those.
it's the one with Thomas Wayne,
Oh
the
yeah,
Flashpoint Paradox,
Flashpoint Paradox. Have you seen The Dark Knight
old,
Returns?
the old Batman.
Yeah,
Yeah, again, if you include the animated ones though,
where he
all the
kicks
live
the
action
shit
movies
out of Superman.
kind of shunt down a bit because the animated ones
Yeah,
are fantastic. Some of the animated ones are
yeah,
fantastic.
absolutely.
And it's whether you include whether you count the
Mm.
Flashpoint Paradox as a Batman movie or as a Flash movie.
Flash movie. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like
Um,
as a Batman story. Like we said, the animated series I think probably tells some of the best Batman stories.
But Batman, like the animated Batman, gets Batman's style of humor fucking perfect. And what I mean by that is, I think I said to you before, like when we were doing like Justice League, and there was a bit where Superman throws Batman against a car, and then Lois Lane comes and they fly off together. And Batman says, alluding to their first movie, he's like, "Oh, yep, something's definitely bleeding now," as in, in a reference to the line, "Do you bleed?" And that's Batman quipping. Batman doesn't quip. Whereas there's this brilliant scene in a movie called Justice League Dark, where basically there's some nefarious powers at play, like supernatural powers, and Batman goes off to enlist the help of the Zatara, the magician, and Deadman. And there's these spirits, and basically they're like, "Oh, Batman, they're like, we sense a great darkness within you, but also a great weight. How do you bear that? How does one human bear this much burden?" And Batman just goes, "I have a butler," and just oof, oof,
Like I said, it's
just
that deadpan,
deadpan. Yeah.
like quite sarcastic humor, and he rolls his eyes a lot
Ah,
in that cartoon series. I think.
yeah.
Um, this is the frustrating thing. Like, I hesitate to even use the word superfans, but I fucking love Batman. Like, I'm not a comic
Same.
book guy,
Same.
but I'll sit and read about the comic books. I can't sit and read comic books, but like
I will
all
go
of
on
the various
YouTube
stuff.
and like get a guy to like read snippets of comics and stuff, and I'll listen to it as if it's a podcast.
Yeah,
No problem.
exactly.
Like DC Knights Metal. Oh, the Batman who laughs. Fucking amazing.
Yeah, and you know what? Like for me, it's Batman then Spider-Man. Like those are the tippy
Mm,
top of the
mm,
superhero pantheon, and
yeah,
like and there's a big gulf between those two and the rest. But
yeah,
Batman's definitely edges Spider-Man as like it's always been cool. It's always like there's something really appealing about superheroes. It's why Iron Man's been so successful in the MCU. There's something really appealing about a guy who isn't a fucking Asgardian god or like
Yeah.
a super soldier, you know, or an irradiated like monster. You know, he's just a guy.
Who's had enough and he's going to do something. Yeah.
Yeah, especially classic Batman, where he's got like gadgets, but he hasn't got the financial the shocking
Prowess.
financial wealth that Christian Bale has, for instance. He literally
Yeah.
doesn't run the NSA like Christian Bale does in that second movie, where you know he's
Yeah.
like Lucius Fox is like basically tapping all the cell phones in the city.
Yep.
You know,
That's illegal.
that's illegal. But I think we're happy with that. We're happy with that.
Very happy. Happy with that listing.
Right.
Where to
Well,
fix it.
I think we need to bring ourselves back out.
This podcast is a bleeding whore. Dave's a bleeding whore. Ross is a bleeding whore. We're Batman. We're all Batman.
That was a perfect soundbite. I just played it at a random point, but that was a perfect little snippet just to get Sam to
That's your outro, yeah.
clap again.
What's that?
I'll
Oh.
just clap once.
Oh,
No, you don't
okay.
need to do it. Because what I'll do is I'll tell him to take it from the YouTube feed.
Yeah.
So he'll see that one clap, but that's where I want him to cut it. I want that. That's perfect, Ross. See, the power of being able to play music under us is going to go to my head.
Yeah.
I am the controller.
There's too much power for one man to wield. Right, I'm gonna stop recording. Oh, do you want
Before we go, we're still on YouTube. If you've made
Go
it this
for
far, like, comment, and subscribe, guys. No, seriously though, give us a review wherever you listen to your podcast. It'd be really helpful.
Yeah.
And also, like,
If you want a movie
at
reviewed,
us on
let us
Twitter.
know.
It's really cool to hear from listeners or viewers, I suppose is the word, because this will not be in the podcast.
You will also be the first person to interact with us, so we will probably laud
that
you
is
with
not
praise.
true, Ross. Sam and Joe got a load
Second.
of shit from someone on Twitter for being
A load of
incorrect
shit?
on a podcast.
Oh, it was about Sharp, wasn't it? I
It
saw
was.
Okay,
And they
you'll
got
be the second one.
In
You'll
fairness,
be the first
they
person to pleasantly interact with us.
Yeah, and in fairness, though, Sam and Joe did get every character name wrong in that, apart from Sharp.
Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ.
Right, let's get out of here.